Welcome everyone to a little bit of a special video. You got Baxter and Jarvis here. Why don't you say hello, Bax?
Yo, what's up, everyone?
This is a video of us giving our final impressions on the beta. We will also have in this footage our separate us beating the bosses on our own time. I'll let you know. You'll see it in the video. I'll put our little emoji faces so you can see whose footage is whose. But I will be playing as the knight with the basic knight getup and the sword. Baxter will be playing as Teal with the hammer and chisel, and you'll see us beating the boss. And this is basically just a general review of how we feel about the game. We're gonna go ahead and
the beta so far.
Oh, sorry, yeah, the beta. Definitely meant to clarify that because we can only speak about what we've played. So, we can't clarify that enough. This is not a review of the game. This is a review of the beta, plain and simple. So, under that logic, we're going to go ahead and we're going to give our initial impressions, which is how I felt about the game while we were recording our playthrough, and then Baxter will give his. So, my honest initial impression while I was recording the playthrough was about a 5. And I don't want to say that to mean like the game is shit. I want to say that is a actual 5 out of 10, which is completely average. And then, Baxter, you can go ahead and tell them what you thought.
Yeah, so I was a little taken back. I mean, like, the game looks beautiful and everything. You turn it on and everything looks really great. But then, to me, at the very beginning, the gameplay mechanics, they felt very clunky. And me not necessarily being like too big of a Souls fan. Like, I enjoy Souls games, but they are known to be incredibly difficult, and this game is no different than the rest.
Yeah, absolutely. Hard to penetrate, you might say.
Yes, for sure. And so I guess my initial impression of this game was probably around a 5 or a 6. I will note, though, however, after I actually sat down and I beat the beta, and I actually beat the beta multiple times because I enjoyed it so much. But once I went through and I beat it the whole way through the first time, and I started using more of the mechanics of the game, like harden and the parrying system and things like that. I didn't necessarily use the riposte. I don't think I used the riposte at all. But I digress. My viewpoint definitely jumped up to probably like an 8 or a 9. Because like I said, I'm not typically into Souls style games, but this was one that I, for whatever reason, actually really sunk my teeth into and really enjoyed. But yeah.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and lead with that was Baxter's final impression after beating it multiple times. He said it was about 8 or a 9. My final impression did jump up as well, but I would say it probably was still only around a 6 or a 7, and we'll get into that. But we wanted to give you guys our initial impressions of the beta before he'd beaten it, and then our final impression scores at the beginning, within the first couple minutes of the vid. So if you don't want to hear us ramble on about why we have those numbers, essentially my initial impression was a 5, Baxter's was a 5 to 6, and then our final impressions mine was a 6 to a 7, and Baxter's is an 8 to a 9. And then we'll get into that here in a moment. We're basically we drew up a little bit of like a draft, almost, you might say, of kind of like a script of we're gonna start by talking about the visual presentation. So I'll go ahead and let you lead with that, Baxter.
Yeah, so like I said, in my initial impression, you wake up and this game is damn pretty. That's nothing, nothing shy of perfect, at least in the term of like the visual fidelity of this game. And that's honestly, I think, because it's built on Unreal Engine 4. That's a beautiful engine, and you can get some amazing assets to build amazing things like what you're seeing right here. So they definitely utilized Unreal to its fullest potential, that's for sure. And it's amazing too, because whenever you think about it, it looks beautiful. This game looks absolutely fucking amazing. And whenever you think about the size of the team that created this game, that is very impressive. It's
It
very,
is.
very,
It's
very
very
impressive.
impressive. It was a handful of guys. I just wanted to add this in there for in case anyone's not in the know. Another example of a game that was built on Unreal 4 is the new remake of Final Fantasy VII. So it's gonna look good.
But yeah, I would say that in terms of the visual looks of this game, it's perfect. Whenever you're looking at any traditional like Souls games, um, I think they all kind of have the same look and feel to them, like with the the health bars and the your souls in the bottom right corner and your items and things like that. This does definitely differ from Dark Souls in that way. The product placement is a little different. But other than that, it's great.
Okay. I'll jump into how I felt about the visual presentation, which honestly is very similar to how Baxter felt. I feel like out of everything in this game, the visual presentation is like a goddamn 10 out of 10. That shit is beautiful. Yeah, getting into Unreal Engine 4 looks real fucking beautiful, runs well. After I had some of this footage you'll see is actually on a different rig to what our initial playthrough was on, and I didn't experience any of the game glitches or like frame rate drops. That was on me, so I'm sorry about that. But so overall, the game runs really well, looks really good. Something I wanted to bring up, which Baxter kind of touched on, was the look and feel of the game. Well, sorry, right now visual presentation, the look of the game compared to something like Dark Souls, which me personally, coming from a guy who very much enjoys Dark Souls, I find that the visual presentation of this game is by far closest to the original, which is in good company, if I might say. I very much like the kind of dark, oppressive, visuals that the game has. Everything looks, I mean, you are fighting monsters and with weird magic and shit, but it does look, kind of realistic, and I like that. There is a kind of a drastic difference between these crazy, horrific monsters you're fighting, but I do look like a real knight guy, running around with just a dumb sword, and I very much like that. As for the environments themselves, I think they're very interesting. It kind of treads on the same ground that Dark Souls has done, but keep in mind when I give these comparisons, they're usually in a good light. So, an
One
example
more
would be.
comparison
Oh,
that you
sorry.
can draw, I would say that whenever you're looking at your inventory screen, and I don't know why this connection is drawn in my mind, but whenever I look at the inventory screen for this game, to me it just screams Dauntless.
Dauntless, yeah, I think Warframe because of the zoom in on your character, but the screen itself isn't very like the UI isn't very Warframe, but the visuals I felt were very Warframe. But yeah, even then, you have the item bar, which you can see you use, your D-pad to go through it. All very good. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I could add. Oh yeah, I was gonna say, for example, Falgrim, one of the first areas. You got this big forest type area with a lot of graves and rubble. It's very kind of catacombsy / forbidden graves, or forbidden forest or whatever. Catacombs obviously from Dark Souls 1 and the forbidden forest or grave, whatever, from Bloodborne. But I like that. It's kind of a mix of those two things in one area, and I like this area. I do. I like that it's not exactly the same. I like the water that's, you can kind of see that the stream, flows through the area. I very much like, because, we're talking about visual representation, I very much like the one NPC, the two NPCs, sorry, the first guy. I don't know if he told us his name. I'm a big fan of him. I love how he sounds. His voice is very distinct. He's cool, dude. He's got all these beakers and shit.
His name
and
is Blast.
Oh, okay, sorry. And you can pet his cat, which is very, very sweet. So I very much like that. I think that'll cap it out for my take on the visual presentation. Well, actually, no. We got to talk about the crypt a little bit. The crypt is another area I like very much. It's very catacombsy from Dark Souls, but I like that it's kind of open, and it's very well lit, and I like that. It doesn't have to be the darkest thing in the world. it can be a well-lit area and it can look good. And I love that, Unreal Engine does really good things with lighting, all that jazz. Oh, excuse me. uh, all that jazz. So, I think the crypt looks good. I think Fulgrim looks good. Like I said, presentation, 10 out of 10. I think that's good for me. Did you have anything you wanted to add, Baxter?
That's pretty much covers everything.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to move on to how the game feels. Now, this one might be a little bit more fleshed out. I'm going to let Baxter go ahead and lead with this.
You should pause the video here.
Like our recording?
Yeah.
We're now getting into how the game feels mechanically. So I'll let you lead that discussion.
Yes. So this is Baxter, and so basically, this game feels very good. At the beginning, I'm not gonna lie, it doesn't. At the very beginning, this game kind of feels like trash booty hole, and the reason that I think it does is because it throws so much stuff at you at the very beginning and just expects you to kind of roll with it. There's this brand new concept that you have, the hardening concept is brand new to anything that I've ever played in terms of like Dark Souls. So that's, I know that that's like a new gameplay mechanic, and it doesn't necessarily feel good at the beginning, which kind of sucks. But the thing that is good about it is it gives you another way to play the game. So like I initially tried to play this entire game without using harden at all, without using any kind of riposte, without parrying, nothing. And I just tried to see if I could get my weapon strong enough to brute force the game. And I realized whenever I got to the end of the beta and you get to the boss, that ain't gonna cut it. And I have to learn how to actually play this game, right? So, and I did, and I sat down and I put the time into it and I grinded it out and I actually learned how to properly harden and the concept of, hardens last forever until you're hit. So there's a lot more to this game than meets the eye, and I think initially the gameplay might feel a little clunky, but as soon as you actually dive in and you play it for a couple hours and actually understand all of the mechanics and the controls, the gameplay feels a lot better. And it's interesting too. It seems like it puts more of a heavy emphasis on you grinding out areas and acquiring tar, which is souls, and then acquiring glimpses from defeating enemies and using items to upgrade your characters. And that's another interesting gameplay mechanic that I think Dark Souls has, but this game focuses on it in a different way, because you're not going to sit there and level up your what is it, your attuning. Or
yeah,
your
there aren't,
vigor.
as far as we are aware, there aren't stats to level up. I'm not going to level up my strength. I'm going to just upgrade my weapon.
Yeah, or I'm going to spend my tar and my glimpse to give my specific shell a character class upgrade that might, for example, like Teal, whenever he's running low on health, he gets reduced stamina impact. Like whenever he's swinging his sword and stuff like that, it uses less stamina when he's at low health.
Reduced stamina consumption.
Yes, exactly. So it's an interesting gameplay mechanic because, I mean, to me, I feel like that's one area where Souls is too much. So I actually appreciate that in this game. So I know that I'm not going to have to sit there and, if I want to use this sword, I got to make sure that my, something's way higher than where I am right now. So I'm going to have to grind it out for 25 hours and just to use a sword that I might not like. So that's one thing I do enjoy about this game. The items are interesting. There's a lot of items that feed off of effects that you apply to your shell. So for example, there's an effect for Teal. Again, Teal is my man this whole playthrough. I loved it. Teal has an effect where every time he gets poison damage, he's healed for a portion of that poison damage. So if you have, for example, like a rotten food in your inventory and you have this shell upgrade on, you could actually use rotten food as somewhat of a healing item if you use it the right way, because you're going to get the benefits from it being a piece of food, so you're going to get health benefits from there, and it's going to poison you, and the poison is going to damage you, but you are going to receive a health benefit from that poison. So it's interesting how you can play off of things like tar spores with the upgrades that you gave your character. And like I said, I'm not really into Souls games. I feel like these mechanics that I'm laying out for you, if you're also not a fan of Souls, but you're kind of into hating yourself a little bit and struggling through something and like, making it happen, those are the reasons why this game would be for you, as opposed to maybe Dark Souls in general.
Yeah, I definitely agree with a lot of what Baxter said. I'll go ahead and say that I think that Teal feels a lot fucking better than Haros. Not that Haros feels bad, he just feels normal, but once you get your hands on Teal and how fast he is, he has a little bit less health, but in a little bit less defense or whatever, stat they use to track how much damage you take, but he swings so fast with that hammer and chisel, and he has so much stamina. And when you give him mechanics like that allow him to heal from poison, it just feels really good. It feels good to kind of like take this mechanic and make it work for you.
Yeah, and if you take a look at the screen, like, I am literally healing myself off of the poison that I have right now. So even though I was poisoned and I had low health, I was able to just continue and not use any of my welt caps because I knew that I was going to heal up to full health before the poison ran out anyway. Which, again, were things that I did not know at the very beginning. So whenever I initially thought this game was trash booty hole, whenever I initially gave this game a 5 or a 6, I didn't understand all these mechanics and how deep this game actually was. And then I took a seat back and sat down, understood everything, read through everything, and it makes sense. You're gonna see me right now go through and fuck up this last boss, and I do it in exactly 1 minute.
Baxter did very well with the boss, better than I did when I fought him. But the footage you'll see of me when you have Haros showing up, me killing Haros, is the first time I fought the boss. So I am still a little bit confused on how to do things. But getting into the hardening, for example, from the earlier videos, I very much never used harden and didn't like it as a mechanic until I took the time. Because and you'll see, when I did the final recordings for fighting the boss on my own time, I chose to do it as Haros because Baxter had already beaten him as Teal, and he had that footage. So I just chose to do it as Haros as kind of, so you can get both views of how it looks. And after taking my own time, not thinking about talking or providing, or trying to provide commentary, I very much learned how to work with the hardening mechanic, which I think feels very good. I don't know how much I like it compared to a shield, for instance, but I definitely will say that my initial impression of it was incorrect. It was just wrong. And then my later impression, when I got to actually experience it on my own time, is much, much more favorable for the hardening mechanic. Baxter was talking a lot about Teal's mechanics. I'm going to go into Haros's a little bit. Haros, I think that his skills are noticeably weaker in terms of how effective they are for someone like me. Because keep in mind, this is all how we feel. This is not an objective, impressions. This is how we as people feel about us, and what we got out of the alarm. What we got out of the us playing this, right? So an example of that is the only real skill for Haros that I felt was really interesting or very useful, at least during the beta, was his ability to recover his harden mechanic 25% faster. That is very, very strong, and I very much use that. Yeah, that's the minute I saw that, I was like, I need to buy that skill. And I want to clarify that me, coming from a coming from a guy who likes Dark Souls, and I like Mortal Shell, I do. Just because I give it a 6 to maybe a low 7, doesn't mean I don't like it. Some of my favorite games are games I have a lot of problems with. I would, just for an example, I would probably only give the first Dark Souls maybe an 8. It just depends on how I feel about it in that day. Something doesn't have to be perfect for me to like it a lot. I like to not be too caught up in the motions to ignore the problems that something I like has. So one of the examples, like I said, is for Teal's mechanics. Some of them being his upgrades are things after picking up a glimpse, I have a chance to recover some health. I'm gonna be honest, maybe that will have more function in the main game, but as the beta, I find that nearly useless because you're not picking up glimpses that frequently. So, me personally, I'm not a huge fan of that.
Only picked up Yeah, I agree. I think glimpses are only picked up whenever you kill the larger enemies.
Yeah, I could only find them after killing the halberd guys.
The halberd guys, and then those guys. Remember, you have to like run around the one.
The blade
They're like,
hands.
yeah, the blade hands. They walk on. Yeah, yes.
uh, but yeah, like I only killed a couple of those dudes. I just ran around them most of the time. You see me trying to hit this asshole through the wall. I'm trying to make it work for me.
Trying to see if that glitch works.
Yeah. I got him. But anyway.
Did you really?
Yeah. See, that's why he aggroed on
Wow,
me.
that's funny.
But yeah, I would say that the game, it feels good, but one of the problems I have, and like this isn't something that I would knock the game for, this is just a personal thing, is that it feels a little slow. And that's kind of why I compare it to the first Dark Souls so much. It's because it feels a little slow. Which is not inherently a bad thing. But if you're used to...
I feel like,
sorry.
based off what you said about, his ability to reharden 25% faster, I genuinely think that they probably intended the game to be slow, and most likely the other shells, the other like 8 shells that we didn't have access to in the beta, most likely at least one of those is going to have something where like you can reharden like 70% faster, or maybe even more than that.
Absolutely, that's what I'm hoping for. That's why I was like, I just want to clarify. It's not a general problem. It's not an objective problem with the game. It's a subjective, not a problem, but more of like an issue I have, which it's like I don't dislike how slow it is, but because it feels like there's a little bit of a delay on some actions. A perfect example is the roll. It feels like there's a little bit of a delay on it for me, and that's probably intended. There's delay on your rolls and shit in like Dark Souls, especially the first one, where it feels really clunky nowadays. But I'm just saying, as a guy who's played the Souls games, the two most recent ones, Bloodborne and Dark Souls 3, they're very, very fast. I feel like because you're used to the slow game, and a lot of people still love Dark Souls 1. I still love Dark Souls 1. But if you're looking for something that's more like the later games, you're not gonna find it as much here. You're gonna find a very shit is not explained to you super well. But that could be part of the point, shit was not explained to you well in Dark Souls at all. So that kind of be, what they're kind of trying to emulate, which I don't find to be a problem at all. You kind of have to work with the game to learn it. It is a game that is very much like Dark Souls. I mean, and I keep bringing up these examples, and I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but these guys, like these developers, very clearly wear their heart on their sleeve. Their inspiration comes from Souls, which is not a problem at all. Like, there's a reason why Souls is popular as it is,
and its own genre.
Yeah, like it has created a subgenre.
Whenever you hear Souls style game, you think of a game like this. You think of Code Vein. You think of Remnant. You think of
Lords of the Fallen. The Surge.
The Surge. That's what I was looking for. Yeah.
And honestly, in my own humble opinion, for a game that is emulating that Souls feel, this is easily one of the closest to do it well, especially compared to something like Remnant or Lords of the Fallen, which I like both those games, but I have a lot more problems with those games than I do this game. Because it feels almost to an extent, and even with this game a little bit, but I don't want to come off as a pretentious asshole, that they emulate this game without fully understanding why Souls works as well as it does. And not that I do, exactly compared to them, but I'm just saying that to give, like, when you think of Souls-likes, the examples that Baxter gave, that's all right. I think this is one of the best Souls-likes so far, and this is just off the beta. Obviously, all of this could change when the full game comes out, but I would say personally, the two of the Souls games I like, the Souls-likes games I like the most are this, the Surge, and probably Code Vein. But as an example, the Surge and Code Vein, which I know a lot about because I've beaten them, at least Code Vein, I've played a lot of the Surge 1 and Surge 2, is because of how different they are. But for this, I do like the differences, but I do kind of like how similar it is to Dark Souls. Like I said, very much in the visual presentation, because in Dark Souls 2, you kind of lost that realistic look of Dark Souls 1. It started to look more like a fucking Blizzard game. Like, very cartoony, like, goofy looking models and stuff, and they kind of brought it back with Dark Souls 3, but Bloodborne is the one that, to me personally, looks visually the closest to the original Souls, and then this, which I very, very much enjoy. I love how it looks. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to add. Was there anything else you wanted to add, Baxter, while I think about something?
No, I think that that was a pretty good overview of how I felt about the game. I think,
Yeah, I do
it,
have one final thing, but you can finish your thought. Sorry.
yeah, I was gonna say, I think if anyone is on the fence about whether or not they want to try it, I mean, right now it's an open beta. You might as well give it a whirl.
The
I
beta's
think it's
gonna
worth
end
your
though. I'm
time.
not sure what day, but it's gonna end very soon. We're recording this right now on the 16th.
16.
The beta might be over by now. I just remember seeing a tweet from the Mortal Shell developers that the beta was gonna end.
That's fair.
But that's just the full game will be out in what, September or something.
Something like that.
So you won't have to wait very long, and it's only $30. So.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, basically the last thing I have written here on my little outline was possible hopes for the main game, which one of the biggest things for me was just more weapons and more armor. And we know there's going to be more, obviously, but I hope that they kind of go out of the way to make everything a little different. Like, obviously, Teal and Haros are pretty different, but I'd like to maybe have like a spear or something, or it's just an example of a weapon. Or maybe like a big ass battle axe, or even like some magic
I
would be
think it
very
would be cool to
interesting.
have like a bow, like a crossbow.
Yeah,
Or
see, I
like
didn't even. Well, we did find bolts. Remember, we found bolts, but I don't think we
Mhm.
found a way to use them. So there's probably going to
Yep.
be a crossbow or something,
Yeah.
which could be interesting. I hope that if there is a crossbow, it will be usable and not really like worthless. Because a lot of bows in the Soul series, and obviously this isn't 100% true, but like a lot of bows, unless you specifically like do some bullshit to get them to work well, they're not super worth it, especially in Dark Souls 1. But yeah, I just hope for some more variation between like the weapons and the armor and the skills.
Yeah.
I really, we haven't even seen all of Teal's and Horus' skills, so we can't talk about the ones we haven't seen. But I'm very much hoping that the other armors will look a lot different. Maybe, and again, don't have any idea. Maybe the ability to like color them, because there was 4 shells on the shell list. So if we have 2 in the beta and there's not any more, there's only 2 other shells. Depending on how long the game is, I could very, very easily see it becoming a little stale without other shells to use. Like if it's a 40-hour game, and you only got 4 shells, and like, let's say you don't like Haros because he's too slow, that could very much impact how much you feel you're going to get out of the customization for the game.
I think the one thing to also keep in mind is that this game is only $30.
Absolutely.
I don't think even for a minute that the story would be 40 hours.
I just gave that
But-
as a rough example as a Souls-like.
That's fair. That's fair.
But yeah, like, that's
I would say
absolutely
one-
a very important thing to keep in mind, is that it's only $30, so...
hmm Yeah, one thing that I would really like them to make happen for this game is the ability to customize just a little further. I like how different it is from Dark Souls, but I think it would be neat to like maybe be able to like flare up your weapons with like different colors of like metals and like
Exactly.
like colorization options, and maybe give you like, because like all these shells have their own given name, but maybe it would be cool if you could like create your own shell or something like that. I don't know how they would implement something like that. Maybe you could like unlock different abilities from other shells, or maybe it'll be like a code vein mechanic where you have like a custom shell and you have to master moves from other shells, and whenever you master a move from a shell, you would be able to use that on your create a shell.
That would be some next level shit.
And then you could theoretically build like a badass shell that could like take on the game. That would be neat. That's Baxter's input right there.
Yeah, like, I think that they should definitely capitalize. Like, obviously, they're very similar to Dark Souls, but that doesn't mean that you can't capitalize on what makes you different, which definitely plays into the customization. I love a lot of shit in Dark Souls, but one of the examples is, and like I said, no idea if they're going to do anything like this. But one of the examples is like color. Um, there's a lot of shit in Dark Souls that I will never wear because I don't like the color that it is. And, you know, I could download mods or whatever like that, but that's a little bit too much for me to do. I don't care enough to do that. And I'm always worried it'll fuck up my game. But I would say overall, yeah, like, don't be afraid. They should not be afraid to capitalize on what makes them different. And I think that might finish us out. If you don't have anything else to add there, Bax Boy.
I think that should be everything.
All right, thank you all for watching. We will see you next time.